Don't move. Turn your fantasy football into reality. Here's CJ.
Hey, how you doing today? Today we have a little bit more viewer mail, and we're going to announce the winners of the Bo Jackson and Barry Sanders cards from 1991 at the end of the show. And we're also going to talk about the Hall of Fame. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're going to start off here with a couple of short letters and responses from our viewer mail. Both of these come from Dean in London, England. And the first question is pretty cool. Once you've focused on your bench and you get to the point where the bench is totally stacked and really deep, in fact, at the point where you can't cut anybody. It'd be nice to have that on your team, wouldn't it? Is it time then to start looking for some 2 and 3 for 1 deals to try to maybe get more elite pieces for your run at a championship? Well, Dean, I would say, yeah, that's exactly what you do. If you've got to the point where your last guy on your bench, because we're always talking about improving your last guy, and let's say that your last guy is a guy that you really like and there's no way you're going to drop him, you have no more room. That's when you know that you've done a good job with your team. Now, if you're in a position at that point to start challenging, make the playoffs, and make a run for a championship, then maybe that's the time to take 2 or 3 of those players off your bench and start looking for an elite guy like Waddle or Hill. Sometimes it's a lot better to be trading some guys off your bench or even off your starting lineup to get that elite piece, because sometimes that can make the difference for your championship run. So part 2 of that question, if I can get it back up here on the prompter, is what weekend should the fantasy final be now that the NFL season is 17 games? Well, I'm still a big believer of leaving it at 13-game season, just because that's an odd number. So you got the 7 and 6 versus 7 and 7 playoff formula for breaking ties and things like that. I think that 13 games is right. But I think with that extra game, that leads you to maybe a 2-week championship. So that way, if something does kind of go haywire in that first week of the championship, it'll give you a truer decision as to which of the teams that makes the final is actually the better team for the season. So, in a fantasy league, sometimes there's that 1-week anomaly. Well, if you have a 2-week championship, sometimes that can help wipe that out and make for maybe a more fair playoff run. I'm going to get back on my soapbox now and say my piece on Jim Marshall. Jim Marshall, as you may or may not know, is a candidate for the National Football League Hall of Fame, and they're going to vote again on the 5th of August is when I guess they announce the inductees for 2023. Now, Jim Marshall is not in the Hall of Fame. He's widely considered to have been one of the greatest at his position. He was a defensive lineman for the Purple People Eaters in Minnesota, is what they were called. And at the time of his retirement, in 1979, he had played every game in Vikings history. He started with the team in 1960 or 61, played 19 consecutive seasons, and never missed a game. You have to be decent to play every game. I mean, if you play every game for 19 seasons as a lineman where you're getting hit every play. Now, regardless of that, here's his records. And I'm just shocked that this guy is not in the Hall of Fame. He definitely should be. But here's his list of records. Most seasons played by a defensive player, 20 altogether. Most complete seasons played, 20. Most consecutive games played by a defensive player, 289. 289. The consecutive regular season games played by a defensive player award, 282. He never missed. The most consecutive games by a defensive player, 277. Most consecutive regular season starts by a defensive player, 270. Most fumbles recovered in a career, 30. Most opponents' fumbles recovered, 29. He's most remembered, though, for a 66-yard fumble return the wrong way. So he holds the dubious records of the most yardage lost on a fumble recovery, being 66. So this guy, despite that last little bit there, come on. 19 consecutive seasons for the same team, played every game for 20 years. He retired in 1979. It's like 45 years ago, and people forget. But please don't forget, vote. Jim Marshall deserves to be in the National Football League Hall of Fame. Nobody plays 19 consecutive seasons for the same team and plays every single game. That's amazing. He was an amazing athlete on an amazing team, and it's just a travesty that he's not in the Hall of Fame. There you go. Up next are winners of the sports cards.
Don't move. Turn your fantasy football into reality.
I'm going to do a little bit more on the Hall of Fame on another player I think deserves to be there on our next show. So you can look forward to that. While you're on the soapbox, you might as well just continue, right? But anyway, one of the key parts of this show is people sending in their what we call viewer mail. And answering these questions that's a lot of fun. But the two winners of the sports cards, the winner of the this is the Barry Sanders card, is Tamby from California. And his question was, big fan of the show. Of course he wins. If you have someone during your draft who's always stealing your players, what do you do? We answered that on a previous show. And we also had a young fella from Ohio. His name was Andrew, who mentioned that his running back room included Zeke, Singletary, Fournette, James Robinson, and Hines, and he wanted to know how to fix that. So he'll win the, what's the other one here? Oh, this is the Bo Jackson. Both these cards are in really nice shape. They're from 1991. We'll get them out to you as soon as we can, with, of course, our Canadian flag. That's very important because it was actually a Canada Day question and promotion that we were running. So thank you very much for watching again. Please subscribe, send your questions here, subscribe, like, all the regular YouTube type stuff, and send those cards and letters. Keep those cards and letters coming, as they say. See you next time.